everyone, and welcome back to another video. I want to thank you for tuning in today for this very special event of Save the Crafty YouTuber, and I hope everybody has enjoyed all the wonderful videos associated with this awesome event, and to thank Justine Hoovey for putting it all together. She is totally awesome. So my project I have for you today is called an Inside Shadow Box. This is the project. It's a Halloween card, and when you open it up, it creates its own little shadow box. So this is the project we're going to be doing today. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you subscribe and stay tuned for more crafty videos. Okay, to get started, we're going to take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of Neenah 110 pound Solar White and cut it in half. So we have two pieces that are 5.5 by 8.5. You score one in the middle and then cut off a 1/2 inch on the back side, and this is your card base. I reinforce all my scores with my Teflon bone folder. And so this is the second piece, and you score it at a 1/2 inch, 4 1/4 inch, which is halfway, and 4 3/4 inch, and you cut a little sliver off of that 1/2 inch side, and that just helps it to fold better later. And then again, once again, I reinforce all my creases with my Teflon bone folder. And you can see the nice little box that it makes, and that is the inner workings of the shadow box. So now we're just going to go through some of the other supplies. I'm using the Pebbles Spooky Boo paper. My favorite thing's wonky stitched rectangle. I'm going to use some of that Spooky Boo paper for the front and the back of my card. And that is what I'm going to use on the front. There's a lot of papers in there that have embossing on them. It's a really pretty collection. I'm also going to use the Spooky Boo ephemera. You'll see that over there on the left, and the Newton's Nook Spooky Street stamp set. Okay, so now I'm going to do some ink blending. This is Oxide inks in Seedless Preserves, Blueprint Sketch, and Black Soot. And I just love blending with the oxides. You can get a good blend on practically any kind of paper. You know, the regular oxides work best on the Bristol, but you do not have to use Bristol with the oxide inks. They will blend smoothly on the Neenah. So you can see I got little sponge marks on there. Just keep going, just keep sponging, and you'll get all those out. And I just go back through all my colors until I'm satisfied with the blend that I have. And they will layer over each other a little bit. So then I just sprayed it with my distress sprayer just to distress it a little bit, and then I'm using my Copic Opaque White with my Arteza water brush, and I'm just splattering that on the background and using my water brush to give me some bigger spots. I also duplicated that on a 4 1/4 by 5.5 sheet, because this is my inside of my shadow box. Okay, here I'm putting on some score tape on that 1/2 inch flap, and then I put it on the back, and I've got a few mistakes in this video. This is my first time making one of these shadow boxes, and I decided to leave in all the mistakes, so hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. But putting the adhesive on that back panel is wrong. It should go on the opposite side of that. And so I will realize that a little bit later in the video as I get further along. Here I've just taken my Spica clear sparkle pen and just adding a few more little stars and sparkles in there. So now I'm going to start stamping on that duplicate inside panel that I made. And I'm just going to put this in my MISTI. I want to be able to stamp it a couple of good times. And I'm just going to put my rectangle die on there, so I can just decide on my placement of my stamped images. So I'm going to take the house out of my stamp set, and I'm going to line that up in there. I'll close the door of my MISTI, pick up the stamp, and remove the die. And I'm stamping everything with Simon Says intense black ink, and I'm going to stamp it a couple of times. Probably should have stamped it, you know, another time or two to get a really, really rich black, or, you know, put some clear embossing powder over it. I think that probably would have made it stand out even more and would have been really pretty. So other than the house, on the back layer, I am just going to put some bats in the sky, and I will stamp those a couple of times. I am going to add moon later on, but and some stars in the sky, but I am going to use embossing powder on those. So right now I'm just stamping everything, and here I put a black bat up into the black part, which totally didn't make any sense, but you can see them a little bit. So all in all, I was very happy with the way it turned out. Okay, so now for my other images, I am just going to stamp the tree, the tombstones, and the owl on a piece of Neenah 80-pound solar white. And again, I'm using my Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink, and I will ink these up a couple of times, and then I will take these over to my brother Scan and cut these out. And through the miracle of editing, here we go. We got all these cut out. Now the Scan and Cut doesn't cut out these inner little portions here, so I'm just using my We Are Memory Keepers knife, and I'm just going around and cutting these bigger inside pieces out, because I really want you to be able to see through the tree, and so you can see the shadow box in the background. And so then I decided that you know, they need sparkle. You know, everything needs sparkle, so I'm adding some Spectrum Noir Clear Sparkle Overlay to it. And so now I am doing that embossing in the sky with the moon, and I'm using Simon Says Stamp Clear Embossing ink, and just getting the moon on there, and I'm using Wow Cloud 9 Glitter Embossing Powder. And I'm just stamping the little cluster of stars that come in the stamp set too, just around randomly. And I'm going to just use that Cloud 9 on all these little images. Sorry I got off my camera a little bit. I was really zoomed in, and I forgot I was that zoomed in, and I moved a little far down. But here we go. I'm going to heat set everything, and as soon as you can see it change colors, then you know it's all done. It doesn't really change colors, but you can see it change textures, and then you'll know everything's all heat set and ready to go. And I decided to go over those bats with my Spectrum Noir Clear Sparkle Overlay, just to help them stand out a little bit, especially that was one that was up in the black. And so then I decided, oh, I'll just add it to the house too. But because I did that Copic splatter, I did smudge that a little bit. So and that I should have dabbed around it, but I forgot, and I just wiped over it, so it smudged it a little bit. But all in all, it looks good. You can't, once it fully dried and everything, you couldn't really tell. So just giving that a good coating of that sparkle. And now we're going to move on to the front of the card. And this is that paper out of the Pebbles Spooky Boo. And I'm just using my Scotch ATG gun to adhere that to the front of the card. I'm lining it up down at the bottom, and I was a little off on my measurements, so I just trimmed that off a little bit on the top, and all good. So I'm going through that ephemera pack now, and I'm going to decide on something to put on the front of my card. And they've got several of these really cool signs with some foiling on them, and I like the first one, and then I really like the pumpkin too, but I decided to go with the first one since it was a little bigger, and I'm just using some foam tape to pop that up off the front of my card. And mash that down really good with my bone folder, and then I'll remove the liner and press that down really good in place, and that'll be the front of my card. Quick and easy, since we spent so much time on the inside of the card. Now I'm lining the little 1/2 inch side up next to the crease of the card base, and I'm lining it up down on the bottom. Since I know I trimmed off my card base a little bit, I'm going to have to trim off the rest of this. And I should have trimmed it off right then there when everything was still good and flat, but I didn't, so it made trimming it a little bit more difficult. But this is where I discover that Oops. Oh, no, this is where I discovered that I should have die cut that window out first, and so I had to peel that apart. Luckily, I didn't notice that right away, and so it was easy to peel off. And I'm going to save that little piece for another card. Okay, so since I peeled that off, it was still pretty sticky, but I decided to go ahead and just run a little bead of the SNIPS Stamp Craft Tacky Glue on there just to make sure that I got good adhesion and it's going to stay together. So I'm lining it up down at the bottom because I remembered I cut it a little short, and I said I should have cut it there and didn't. Now here's where I discovered that, oh, I put my adhesive on the wrong side of that panel. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some more pattern paper on the back side, and I really like the way that turned out. I think it's super cute. And just going to measure that up and cut it. And just peel off those liners on that tape and line up my cute little pattern paper background. Now it's going to fold together good. And I still haven't trimmed it. That was another little faux pas. So now I'm just going to put the adhesive on the correct side, and I will smash that down all really good with my bone folder and remove the liner from the adhesive strips. And I will fold it over, and I set the card up on end so I could get it down in there nice and square using my table. And I did just go and trim that off. I had to trim that panel down too so it would slip in easily, and so I'm just taking some of the craft tacky glue because I want to be able to have some time to wiggle it around and get it into place. Just putting some of that all over the back of there, and I'll slip it into my card base and mash that down into place. And that sets up really quickly. You know, I just gave it a good mash and it was good to go. Okay, so now here was kind of one of my other little wish I'd have done differently. I wish I'd put my house over to the left so I could put the tree over to the right and let it hang over, but I just did some creative trimming, and I will put it over to the left, and I'll use those little branches here in a minute. So kind of turned out really okay. And I just love using these little miniature clothespins. You can find them at your local craft stores. I will see if I can find a link to them online. But when I'm doing stuff I'm gluing into place, like on this kind of card or one of those box pop-up cards, these little clothespins come in really handy to hold things in place while your glue dries. So I'm just going to put the little tombstones down in front here. And then I'm going to take these branches that I cut off and put a little bit of glue on the back and then have them peeking out over the top of the tombstone. I thought that would look really cool. And this one I'm just going to put right behind the tombstone here. So lots of dimension everywhere. And we're almost done with this card. So a lot of steps involved in this card, and you got to really kind of think it through and make sure that you're putting your tape and things in the right places, and remember to do your die cut before you start assembling and all that good stuff. So that's why I wanted to leave in my errors on this to make sure that you could remember and not make the same errors I did. So here's a final look at my card. Again, thank you for watching. I hope you subscribe and enjoy watching all the videos on the Save the Crafty YouTuber Video Hop. Thanks again to Justine Hooby for putting this all together.